Good morning. I'm Olivia Holas for Boca Magazine, and it's time for another coffee break with Marius Jed, managing partner of Jed Lawyers, and the incomparable J. Albert Johnson, senior trial consultant, also at Jed Lawyers. It's so nice to see you, gentlemen.
Good morning, Olivia.
Good morning.
Happy Thursday already. Another week. These weeks really do fly by. And today we're going to be chatting about car accident investigation. So, Marty, I'm going to start with you. What does that entail? What is the process when investigating a car accident?
So, one of the first things that anyone should do when they're involved in an auto accident is call the police. And the reason to do that is to document what happened, what it's the time, the weather, the conditions of the roads. Also, to be able to talk to the different witnesses that obviously witnessed this or saw the accident. When there's two people involved in a car accident, it's not uncommon to have very different versions of what happened. So, a lot of times, the police will investigate and will talk to innocent bystanders who may have been around there to get their version or their firsthand account of what happened. And all of that information is generally compiled into a police report. And that is a lot of times the first piece of evidence the lawyer gets to review.
Right. Well, Al, how, is it important to investigate, and not just rely on a police report? Because obviously that is the first report that comes out, but I understand that as attorneys, you will often conduct further investigation to create the case.
Yeah, I kind of would like to start out a little bit, if you would, about what people should do, readers of Boca magazine should do in regard to what may take place in an automobile accident. It's very, very important that right now, before the happening of any accident, God forbid, that individuals get out their insurance policies and look at them. There are two things that we know are true. Number one, people drive uninsured. In the state of Florida, there have been studies which say that 70% in some areas of Florida of people who drive on the highway drive uninsured.
Wow.
And there are other very good studies which show that many people drive underinsured, which means even though they have an insurance policy required by Florida law, they underinsure. In other words, they have, let's say, a 10-20 policy, which we commonly refer to it, meaning $10,000 per person per accident, $20,000 if more than one people are hurt. Liability insurance. Now, if you are involved in a serious accident, God forbid, the medical bills alone, even if you're just taken to the hospital in the ambulance, are going to exceed $10,000. And the way things are nowadays, with the specialized equipment necessary to diagnose serious injury and medical bills, you're talking $40,000, $50,000 in medical bills alone, not to speak of pain and suffering and disability. So the most important thing I think that the public can do right now is to go get their insurance policies out, take a look at them, see what they cover, contact their insurance agent, and increase, if necessary, the limits of the policy. For instance, I tell every single client of mine, $100,000, $300,000. In other words, $100,000 limits, liability limits for each person involved in an accident, and $300,000 in the aggregate. In other words, if more than one person is involved. And I tell them, make sure absolutely positively that they get those same limits, at least those same limits, and that they insist that the insurance agent cover them for uninsured and underinsured liability. Really, really important. Many people don't realize how important it is to have that underinsured, uninsured motorist coverage. That's really, really important. So that'd be number one, before anyone has, God forbid, an accident. The second thing with regard to the happening of an accident is, as Marty said, call the police. Right away, call the police. some people are, you know, they don't want to call the police, don't want to get involved to that extent. But you never know. You never know what might happen, what claims might be made against you, and you never know the extent of your injuries at the time the accident occurs. So the first thing is to have the presence of mind, if possible, to call the police right away. 911, call the police. Secondly, make a good understanding of what the circumstances are of the accident. Note whether there may be witnesses around. Note whether there may be businesses around where cameras are present. Note whether or not there are other people standing in the area whose names you can get, if possible, who will be witnesses on your behalf. Now, when the police arrive, the first thing to do is think of yourself. Think of yourself, not selfish, think of yourself. Am I injured? What is the extent of my injuries? And oftentimes, because of the shock of a serious accident, one may not know how seriously they might be injured. So the first thing to do then, after the police arrive, is ask for medical help. Don't turn it down. If the police officer asks whether or not you need medical help and you really think that you may have been injured, even the slightest, call for the EMTs. Let them make that determination, because there are many cases, many cases where people who are in shock as a result of a motor vehicle impact don't realize that they're really injured. So it's important to get the EMTs on the scene so that you can get medical treatment on the scene, and if necessary, be transported to a hospital. The next thing is really important is to chronicle everything. Now, we as lawyers understand, we know that we would like to have a description of every single thing that happened to you and the occupants of your vehicle as a result of a motor vehicle accident. And we know that's not reasonable sometimes, because people are occupied with taking care of their own medical needs, number one, and number two, taking care of their motor vehicle. So as best you can, get the names of people involved, witnesses involved, and certainly the name of the other vehicles involved. That is the names and addresses of the operators of the other vehicles and the insurance information on those other vehicles, if possible. Now, the next thing you have to remember at an accident scene is there's a trauma, there's an impact. And the people who are involved in accidents often give statements they wish they wouldn't have made later on. So it's best at the scene of an accident not to make any statements. Don't make any statements. The police will often interrogate the operators of motor vehicles. They will also interrogate witnesses. It's a really good idea not to make statements about what happened, because those statements made in haste may later on not prove to be the real happening of what occurred. So no statements. Next, call a lawyer. Call a lawyer. The lawyer is not going to charge you for attending to your needs at that time. Not going to charge you at all. There may be no case. There may be no need for a lawyer later on. But the real good thing to do is, at that time, call a lawyer. Get him going. He'll know what to do. He'll know exactly what to do as far as the witnesses are concerned, getting investigators out to determine whether or not there are witnesses, to determine who is at fault, and certainly to attend to your medical needs, to make sure that you get to the right place for your medical attention, the hospital, the doctors who are going to help you. He's going to enforce upon you the duty that you have toward yourself to get the best medical treatment you can possibly get. Because again, often in a motor vehicle accident, people don't realize that they're injured as seriously as they are. I remember distinctly my own part, many years ago when I was a police officer, I was struck in the rear by another car, drunken driver, by the way. And that injury that I received, I poo-pooed it. I said, I'm okay, I'm fine. Never made a claim, never did anything about it. 35 years later, my back is really serious, a serious component of pain for me 35 years later. So it's important to get real competent medical attention. Now, I've said what you should do if you're involved in an accident. Before you're involved in an accident, I said what you should do. Look over that insurance policy. Make sure the agent covers you with that underinsured motor vehicle insurance coverage. But other things you should do too. Drive safely. That's just, it's simple, but drive safely. Here in Florida, you know, people drive as though they're in New York sometimes. Maybe they are. Or Boston, where I come from originally. They drive crazy. So make sure, drive safely. Don't take a chance on a yellow light. When the light comes on yellow, come to a stop. When you come to a stop sign, don't slide through. Come to a complete stop before you turn right. Come to a complete stop before you go straight ahead. It's a good idea. And above all, don't drink and drive. Don't drink and drive. Even a thimbleful will get you arrested. A thimbleful of alcohol will get you arrested. If the officer comes to the scene of an accident and you've had one drink, and he observes the odor of alcohol, you're going to be arrested.
Yeah.
Be careful. Do not drink and drive. So if there's any one thing that I would say, other than driving safely, it's don't drink and drive. Don't drink and drive.
When I also don't text and drive too, that's also kind of an issue that we are seeing so much these days. So that's definitely, any text, any call is worth waiting after you arrive at your destination. So, and we have covered a lot with Marty and the Jed Lawyers team about auto insurance coverage. So, you know, it's really a great reminder, Al, that coverage is super important because those bills definitely add up. Marty, do you investigate all of your clients' car accident cases when they come to you, or are there parameters that you look into in terms of, you know, what constitutes further investigation on your part?
Well, we absolutely investigate every single claim because it's necessary for us to kind of vet out the facts. And as I mentioned before, when you're dealing with two different versions of what happened, it's extremely important that you get the truth from your client and you get all the understanding. And there's lots of misinformation. The facts may be wrong on the police statement. And we actually have an in-house investigator, a retired police officer, that helps us internally. And that's kind of our secret weapon. Most law firms don't have that, but we have an actually a traffic homicide trained accident reconstructionist. So David Rosenthal, who's in our firm, is a retired police officer, went through the state of Florida training, had the ability or had the training to be able to write these specific reports. And he takes that information to the job every day. There are a lot of times, or certain times, unfortunately, when we deal with wrongful death cases, someone died as a result of someone else's negligence. And there's almost every time those cases come in, David from our firm, along with Mark Pacco, who happens to be an engineer and our lead trial attorney, walk the scene is what we call it. Obviously, we do it in a safe manner to protect our people, but there's a lot of information that can be gathered at the scene of a crime or scene of an accident, whether it's parts of a tire that may have separated, whether it's parts of a bumper or just stuff from the car that may have flown out. But there's a lot of sometimes important skid marks, which are able to, through mathematical equations, you're able to determine how fast the car was traveling, how much time it took them to slow down, and could they have avoided the accident. So we do all that stuff in-house. We are blessed to have actually a retired police officer that helps us do this, but it really, the benefit inures to the client. So they have the best opportunity to prove their case in a court of law with actual evidence from a trained police officer.
Right, great. That's a very important asset. Al, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, you know, we represent people who are involved in accidents. We're plaintiff lawyers. We represent people who are injured in accidents, and we bring claims against insurance companies to recover losses for those people who are injured. It's very, very important to impress upon people the need not to give statements after an accident if you get a call from an insurance adjuster. Insurance people are not in business. Insurance companies are not in business to pay losses. They're in business to save money for their stockholders, and they will do whatever is necessary in order to not pay just claims. Now, that may sound tough, and people who are listening may disagree with me, but after the years of experience I have had, I can tell you that insurance companies will do what they can, sometimes to confuse the issues by calling people on the phone and asking for statements after an accident. If you're involved in an accident, do not answer phone statements or individual statements brought by insurance adjusters or investigators who may come to the scene or even visit you in a hospital, which happens more than we like to think about. So those things should be left to the lawyer. Call a lawyer, let the lawyer make the liability statements clear.
And that's why it's so important to bring on an attorney early on when a car accident happens, unfortunately, because again, the attorney is going to be able to walk you through the steps and do everything properly so that you really get the best coverage. The issue gets rectified as best possible. As for a hit and run, how do you reconcile that? I mean, I know that's probably a different situation. I know a friend of mine was in a car accident last year, a hit and run. So how does that, how do you go about that?
Well, at the scene of the accident, we had a very recent case. At the scene of an accident, a very serious accident on 95, the plaintiff, who we represent, just noticed a small green Fiat. He knew what the car was, and a small green Fiat. And that's all the information anyone had. That's all the information anyone had at the scene. We were able to determine, because of other witnesses and a camera which was located very near the incident, beside Route 95, we were able to determine the existence of that Fiat, and we got the last three numbers of the registration plate. We were able to identify the vehicle and bring the claim after a hit and run. Now, the police do that too. And it's certainly important that the information that you have or the witnesses have as to who might have been in the area, who might have seen a hit and run perpetrator. And the police will follow up on that generally, but not always. That's why it's important to call that lawyer immediately.
And additionally, Olivia, with today's technology, certain people actually have dash cameras. I don't know if you've ever seen or been in an Uber where they have dash cameras to record everything, front and back. And then also there may be businesses that have cameras.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of time you're able, obviously not on 95, but if you're in a local area, whether it's Dixie Highway or Federal Highway, and there's businesses with cameras, you're able to retrace or recreate and get copies of those videos to potentially pick up a hit and run.
Even on 95, the case I was talking about was at the exit ramp on Congress Avenue at 95 in Delray. And there was a gas station at the end of the exit on Congress, which did have a camera. And that camera was able to disclose the identity of the vehicle I was speaking about.
Right. So Big Brother's watching. So if make sure that if you get into a car accident and you're kind of in the wrong and you might panic, don't go dashing away. Stay on the scene. Any final parting words, Al, Marty, about this specific topic?
With cameras and the evolution of all that equipment, it's a good idea to take pictures at the scene. The first thing we should do, take care of yourself. Make sure your injuries are taken care of and not run around taking pictures. But if it's available, if you can, we all have cell phones and they all have picture taking capabilities. It's a real good idea to take that cell phone out and take pictures of the accident scene, including individuals who may be
very good common sense approach if you're able to.
Right. And Marty, any final parting words on this topic?
No, just kind of use your common sense. Understand when these events do happen, you're going to be in a state of shock. And the most important thing is primarily your health at that point to make sure you're okay. And then everything will flow from there.
Right. Well, now for a more fun question, like we always enjoy ending these chats with, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given, Al?
The best piece of advice that I have ever been given in this regard always is don't drink and drive. Don't touch a drink and drive the motor vehicle. That's the best advice that was ever given to me as a law enforcement officer before I became a lawyer.
Marty?
There's a lot of words of wisdom that I've taken along the way. And there's an old saying, nothing for nothing is nothing. And that's an adage in our industry where it just means a lot and it resonates a lot with what we do. So we always try to provide value to someone. We always try to be compassionate to our clients, and we always try to advocate zealously for our clients as well.
That's really great. Great words of wisdom from both of you. Thank you so much for, again, another super informative segment with Jed Lawyers. I mean, this information, is just really beneficial to me, our viewers, and, it's just really great to have you both with us. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Olivia.
Thank you. It's our pleasure.
And thank you. And thank you to our viewers for joining us again on this beautiful Thursday morning. We wish you a wonderful rest of your day and a happy weekend. Until next time, bye.